So I wanted to talk a little bit about uh, myths and things that people say about fuel stations. There was recently a pretty viral video on TikTok, and I don't know if it made it to YouTube or not, where there was a gentleman saying to fill your vehicle with the first small click. You know, when you go to pull the gas pump handle when you're filling fuel, and there's the little clicks inside the handle. You get one, two, maybe sometimes three. I think it's just one and two typically. He was saying fill the pump on the first click. Don't fill it on the second click, the faster click, because you will put too much fuel vapor in your vehicle, and by putting too much fuel vapor in the vehicle, that means you're actually filling up less fuel, and vapor is what's triggering the vehicle or the pump to think that it's full. And there was this video had like millions of views, like 300,000 or 400,000 likes on it. And I'm watching this video and I'm like, this is a little ridiculous. The pump is only set up to pull raw or liquid. The vapor sits on top of the liquid inside the tank, and it's actually what helps keep it stabilized as the tanker is filling up the tank. There's multiple safeties inside that tank to let that tanker know that it's full. At the same time, that tanker will actually pull in a certain amount of vapor, so when it takes it back to when the trucker takes the tanker back to the fuel station and fuels back up, they have a vapor management system at the fuel depot where they get fuel that will actually handle all that. So there's stage one. Stage two is the fuel management that is on the vehicle side. You have a charcoal canister that also has to deal with the fuel management vapor side of the fuel on the vehicle side. You're not ever pumping vapor from that storage tank at the gas station into your vehicle. You're pumping liquid fuel. The problem is, the faster you go, the more you churn stuff up inside your tank, the more fuel sloshing around, the more vapors are generated inside the tank with the liquid fuel that's coming out, and atmospheric temperatures affecting it. You're creating vapors inside the tank. And as that level rises really fast inside the tank, it moves those vapors back up the fuel inlet into the fuel nozzle, and there's a check ball float mechanism inside the fuel nozzle that detects that sudden increase in minute pressure, and it pops the handle and it stops it from filling up anymore. So essentially, when you put it on the first click instead of the second click and you slow things down, you're able to get fuel in your fuel tank slower at a more controlled rate without that rushing vapor that's being generated inside your tank rushing back and slapping that little diaphragm or filling up that little diaphragm with vapor faster. That indeed is how you fill it up a more controlled way without the pump clicking off so much. You're not pulling vapors from the fuel station storage tanks and pumping the fuel vapor into your car and tricking your fuel pump to think that it's more full. So by slowing down to the first pump, you're getting more liquid and less vapor. That's not true. It's a complete myth. And it just boggles my mind on how many people are out there and believe what they're being told by people that don't do this as a profession. And they'll latch onto it because it makes them feel hopeful. All you're doing by doing that first click instead of the second click is you're slowing things down so that agitation of fuel inside your fuel tank is not creating so much vapor, and just the atmospheric temperature in general is not creating so much vapor. And the more energy you're putting into that fuel by pumping it faster, you're actually creating a little bit more heat as well. By doing so, is not creating so much vapor. You're not pumping vapor from the gas station tank to trick the fuel pump. I get a kick out of people sometimes. People will believe anything. And then the gentleman said, by filling up early in the morning, by filling up early in the morning, you're able to put a little bit more fuel into your tank. And by doing so, you're getting more fuel out of that. Little itty bitty tiny bit. Itty bitty tiny bit. It's so minute that it really doesn't matter. A fuel is cooler and it's more condensed. It's not as expanded. You could fit a little bit more in there. As temperature gets hotter, fuel gets hotter, it expands. So I had to clear out some memory on the phone to finish recording. So as fuel gets hotter, it'll expand a little bit more. It'll have a higher tendency to create a little bit more vapor, but that's why you have your vapor management system on your vehicle to handle that vapor. So I mean, we're talking about so minute in retrospect to how much you're actually being able to put in the vehicle with fuel temperature overall, that you're probably never actually going to notice the gain out of it, for the simple fact that it's so small that it's not even really a bragging point by filling the car up at 6 o'clock in the morning versus 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, it's hotter. Yes, more vapor is generated with heat, but what you're actually going to see at the pump and the vapor management system at the pump, as well as your vehicle, is going to be able to mitigate a lot of that vapor that's generated, and you're not really going to see that much of a benefit overall. So there's a lot of myths that people are talking about, and people think that they are explaining things to others to benefit them, when really they're just feeding them a bunch of baloney. And the secondary effect sometimes may be that there's some small truth to what they're saying, but the majority of it is completely false. Fill your vehicle up slower, and it just doesn't return as much vapor that's being generated inside the tank naturally and shutting the fuel nozzle off premature. You're not pumping vapor from the fuel station storage tanks into your vehicle to trick the fuel pump. And the temperature difference between 6 o'clock in the morning versus 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you will be able to put just a teeny tiny bit more fuel in there because of expansion and contraction, but you're never really going to see that as a cost savings or anything. Just fill the vehicle up, and when it's done and it clicks and you know that it's full, hang the nozzle up and go on about your way. Don't keep sitting there clicking the handle, because then you do end up doing damage to your fuel system, vapor management system, and potentially could cost yourself thousands of dollars by backfilling that vent tube and everything else and getting liquid fuel down inside the charcoal canister. Just find a good spot to fill your vehicle up. Sometimes you got to pull the nozzle out a little bit, let it breathe a little bit more. Instead of shoving it all the way in there until it can't go anymore, maybe just back it out of here. Sometimes people have to flip the nozzle upside down and fill it upside down because the pump does click off a lot. And then other times there's some kind of fault inside the fuel vapor management system that's causing this type of premature. Again, a lot of people tell me all the time that, oh, I can't just let it click one time and be done filling up my car, because if I do that, then sometimes it stops at 3/4 tank. I get that some people have specific scenarios. I have to worry about that too sometimes with the Panther platform cars. But what I do is I grab the nozzle and I pull it out just a hair, let it breathe a little bit more around it, so it's not a perfect seal with the nozzle going in, and it lets some of that vapor out, and then more fuel can rise up inside the tank. It's all about the position of that fuel nozzle. Sometimes flipping it upside down works the best, and sometimes you just have a fuel system that's kind of faulty. Even right now, Ford has a bunch of, Escapes and Broncos that have a fuel inlet issue with the way that it's designed and how it cuts and routes down to the fuel tank. It causes the fuel nozzle to cut off premature. So if you have one of those vehicles that a customer brings in and they're stating that every time they go fill up fuel, they're having an issue getting a full tank because it keeps kicking off and clicking off and clicking off. They have redesigned the fuel inlet tube and they want us to replace it on the customer complaint vehicles with the updated design, so it's a more free-flowing design and true fill neck instead of something that's got a bunch of turns and ridges or whatever baffle inside it that may end up causing some filling issues. Yeah, I said a lot in a short amount of time, or a long amount of time, however you gauge it, and I hope you've gained something from this. Just watch out for those myths out there. A lot of people say things that they really don't understand. Be blessed.
When the underground storage tanks need refilling, the connections to the fill pipes are located in sealed spill buckets, which direct any fuel spilled straight into the tank. But that's just the beginning of the safety story. The rest is literally below the surface. As an added measure of safety, today's underground tanks feature a variety of overfill prevention technologies. A flapper valve automatically cuts off the flow of fuel into the tank, while a ball float in the vent pipe prevents vapor from escaping. The pressure of vapor within the tank then prevents additional fuel from entering. A float sensor alerts the operator if fuel reaches the target level. Once fuel is in the tank, it's important to make sure it stays secure until it's dispensed. That's why leak prevention is another essential part of the safety story. Thanks to a nationwide upgrade campaign, the vast majority of underground storage tanks and pipes feature corrosion-resistant coatings, or they're made entirely of resistant materials like fiberglass. When uncoated steel tanks are used, cathodic corrosion prevention systems are required. Corrosion, or rust, is caused when moisture in the soil draws off electrons from iron molecules in the steel. Applying a slight electrical current, basically a stream of free electrons, helps keep the iron molecules intact. But a commitment to safety also means expecting the unexpected. So leak detection is another important feature of underground storage tanks. Sensors can detect even a small leak by comparing the amount of fuel dispensed at the pump with the amount that should remain in the tank. In the pipes leading from the tank to the pump, line leak detectors use a spring-loaded probe to test fuel pressure. An unexpected change in pressure will trigger an alarm. Many storage tanks today feature double walls. The space between the walls is filled with brine. Sensors monitor the pressure level of the brine. A leak in either the inner wall or the outer wall will cause the pressure level to decrease and an alarm will sound. Upgraded equipment, important technologies, and sound practices. Together, they help your neighborhood service station protect our environment and your peace of mind.